Even before the ball was kicked in the Premier League this season, it felt like we could possibly be in for a really good relegation battle. And every single game week that goes by, and we've had 11 of them now, I feel like we get a little bit more evidence to suggest we could be in for a tasty one this season. And it's important. It's important for the Premier League. That's exactly what happens. We need it for entertainment purposes, because last season there wasn't a relegation battle. There wasn't a title race. There was a European race, but the rest of the league was over by March. The Premier League can't afford that. They need competition, they need entertainment, and they need something to keep as many fans gripped for as long as possible. And the relegation battle is promising to be one of those reasons, but also for hope. Championship clubs need evidence as to why they can come up and stay up next season. The last thing the Premier League and the Football League needed was the 3 promoted teams to go straight back down, make it 9 promoted teams, 9 relegated teams. Now, Sunderland are giving them hope at the minute, but the league table currently looks like this. Wolves at the bottom with 2 points. We've got Nottingham Forest with 9. Then we've got West Ham, Burnley on 10, Leeds and Fulham on 11, and Newcastle, surprisingly, on 12 points. And we've got Sunderland all the way up there in 4th place. That's how the league table is currently looking, and I'm looking forward to doing this video for 4 reasons. 1, I enjoy this type of content. I like doing this type of video, so I'm doing it. Number 2, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys say in the comments below, how you feel about your team, how you feel about the relegation battle. Number 3 is because I did this type of video during the last international break and said I'd do it during this international break. I'm a man of my word, so here we are. And number 4, when I did that video, got 10,000 views, so if it gets 10,000 views again, why would I not repeat it? Don't change something that's working, right? So here we are. And if it does get 10,000 views, can I just ask y'all to please subscribe? Because you all subscribe, then I'd obviously have over 10,000 subscribers. Quick maths here on Tartan, but your support would be appreciated. So please do subscribe if you're new, and drop a like on the video as well by clicking thumbs up, and do get involved in the comments as requested. And speaking of comments, I've got to say a couple of thank yous before we get into discussing every team that could be involved in the relegation battle. Starting with Tom, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. It's very, very kind of you. It means a lot to me. It's a good morale boost, and also helps out the channel financially. And I know people might think it's only £2. I make about £160, £170. Last month I made £180, but that's because we had a video that did 10,000 views. So every little helps. So Tom, thank you very much. And also to Jonathan, for his £5 super chat as well. 2 West Ham fans supporting one of their own, chatting nonsense on YouTube. Tom, Jonathan, thank you for your support. Right, let's get over to FotMob, who do not sponsor the video. I just like FotMob. I like using it. It's a very good app to use, and it's completely free. No one sponsored the channel. I'm too small. So let's start with Wolves, because they're down the bottom table. 2 points. Lost the last 5 games there against Chelsea, Fulham, Chelsea again in the cup. We've got Burnley and Sunderland as well. So it's not a great outlook for Wolves, is it? The next 5 games, though, I mean, we could go further than that, and we will. They've got Wolves. Sorry, they don't have Wolves. They are Wolves. They've got Crystal Palace at home. Difficult fixture straight after international break. Obviously, they're away to, well, they've changed manager. Pereira's gone. They're going to appoint Rob Edwards. We'll discuss that in a different video. So there is change. Change has been made. But I mean, that's a difficult fixture to start with. Crystal Palace, at least it's a home game, but Palace, you'd rather not that. Then it's away to Aston Villa, who are in great form at the minute. Villa Park is a tough place to go. One of the best home forms in European football Villa have got. Then they host Nottingham Forest during the week. And a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, this would have been felt like a winnable fixture. And that's the fixture they needed a few weeks ago. Now it's got a bit more difficult with Dyche there. And whilst they're not purring Nottingham Forest, you do feel like at that point they might be even more Dyche and even more difficult to beat. Then they host Man U, who are in form at present, but may not be by that point. Away to Arsenal, that's just a write-off. Home to Brentford. At the start of the season, you would have maybe fancied Wolves to win this fixture before you knew what was coming up. But if that fixture was going to happen tomorrow, would you put money on Wolves to win that game? I certainly wouldn't. And then they played Liverpool, who are obviously crap at the minute, but this is the end of December we're looking at here. So the fixtures are not kind. 2 points after 11 games. It's very difficult to see Wolves getting out of this one. And I know they didn't win their first game of the season until match day 11. So they've already done worse. But I guess the point, the beacon of hope for Wolves is, well, we started late last season, we were okay. But the thing is, one, they had good players. They still had Cunha. They still had Aït-Nouri. And they've lost them now, and they've not replaced them adequately. And two, the 3 promoted teams were really bad last season. That's not the case anymore. So you don't have 3 really rubbish teams, and you don't have a squad as good. Can Edwards keep them up? I don't know. Yeah, sorry, Wolves fans, if you're tuning in. To be fair, I think most of them would agree with what I'm saying here, but there's little to no evidence to suggest why Wolves will be all right. Because not only do they need to improve a lot, they need the teams above them to get worse. I can't see it. I just cannot see it. Wolves are gone as far as I'm concerned, and I hope they are, because I'm biased. I'm a West Ham fan. Right, let's switch over to Nottingham Forest then, who are 19th in the league, got an important win against Leeds United at the weekend and needed that. Obviously drew Man United the week prior, which was a good game, and the game against Bournemouth, which was Dyche's second game, first league game, they were terrible. I watched that game and Forest were absolutely crap, but I think you can just write that one off as a Forest fan and look at the last 2. 4 points from Ellen Road and hosting Man U. I think that's a really good return. They've also got the European football, which is the biggest issue for them. Go to Anfield after international break. Whilst I wouldn't back Forest to win it, I'm not sure I'd be putting money on Liverpool either. I expect Liverpool to win, but they're vulnerable. Then they've got that European game against Malmo, hosting Brighton, who are inconsistent. We'll point out something about Brighton in the league table in just a second. That game against Wolves, away to Everton, Dyche back at his former club, and then they host Spurs on Sunday. That takes us up to the 14th of December, not quite as far as the Wolves ones because of all the European football, but we do go a little bit further. They've got Fulham, and then they've got Manchester City on the 27th. So they've got some difficult fixtures in there. As I was just checking, they're playing Everton on the 6th of December. And on the 30th of December, that's a quick turnaround for those 2 games, isn't it? You'd imagine Forest will pick up some points, but whether it's enough to get them out of the bottom 3 by the next break in play, I'm not too sure. Let's just say by the end of the year, can they get them out of the bottom 3? I don't know. They're going to pick up some points, though. There's certainly some winnable fixtures in there. And there's a few what I would describe as do not lose games. If they could avoid defeat at Liverpool and avoid defeat at Everton, I think they're good, but he'll be looking at the Wolves one in the Brighton game in particular, I think, and thinking you got to get 6 points out of that, or at least 4. Try to get 7 out of these 3, but minimum of 6 anyway. I think they'll be okay, Nottingham Forest. Now, I am putting a lot of it on to Dyche and the fact that they've got really good players, but they're only a point behind Burnley, who are 17th, and you look at the goal difference, Wolves are quite far behind with minus 18. Forest have minus 10, West Ham have minus 10, Leeds have minus 10, Burnley have minus 8, which is a slight advantage, but it's not something that feels reliable at this point and could change very, very quickly. Now, moving on to my team, West Ham in 18th. The thing I want to point out about the likes of Brighton is that West Ham, Burnley, Leeds, Fulham, we've only won 3 games, but you look up ahead at Brighton and Palace, they've only won 4, it's just that they don't lose as much and they concede less goals. In terms of goal scoring, Palace have scored 14, which is the same as Burnley. So it's small margins in the Premier League. But let's have a look at my team then. A couple of back-to-back wins against Newcastle and Burnley. These 2 were the bad 2 for me. I was livid with these games. The team we put out against Brentford was unacceptable. Nuno got it all wrong. The team we put out against Leeds was unacceptable. Nuno got it all wrong. And if we do go through that trapdoor at the end of the season, if we do get relegated, these are the 2 fixtures I'm probably going to come back to and say, what on earth were you doing? Because the team he fielded, the team he started against Newcastle, let's have a look. With that midfield of Potts, Paqueta and Fernandes, and you've got Bowen and Somerville on the wings. That's what everyone wanted. I say everyone, that's what the majority of West Ham fans wanted to see against Brentford and Leeds. And when you look at what we've done against Brentford, this was after the last international break. He tried this thing of playing our young left back at right back. He had Kyle Walker-Peters at left back, and then in midfield, Souček and Irving. It was Paqueta in a false 9. It was just all wrong. And you make a mistake, it's bad, but it's not the end of the world. So we go to Allen Road on a Friday and does the same thing again. Scholes is right back again. Paqueta was up front with Bowen in the first half. We had our left back playing left midfield, and we continued with that midfield pairing of Souček and Irving. It was absolutely terrible. And there was no reason for it. It was just... Sorry, I'm clicking all the wrong buttons here. There was absolutely no reason for it from Nuno. But 2 really good wins against Newcastle and Burnley and playing the team that most West Ham fans wanted to see. But our fixtures after the international break ain't too pretty. We return with a game away to Bournemouth, who... They're not in the best of form at the minute, but I think it's fair to say that you'd fancy Bournemouth to win that. Then we host Liverpool, away to Man U on the Thursday night. Then we're away to Brighton. Then we host Aston Villa before going to Etihad, and then we take on Fulham at the London Stadium. So we've got a difficult run of fixtures coming up now, and we'll do well to get points. You know, Bournemouth, a point would be good. Liverpool, a point would be good. Man U, a point would be good. Brighton, a point would be good. Villa, a point would be good. City, a point would be good. But that's 1, 2, 3. That's 6 games where we're saying a point would be good. 6 points from those 6 games. I mean, it might be enough, but it feels like you need a little bit more, and it's hard to see, despite what we've done, it's hard to see where a win comes from. Now, as a typical stupid fan of your club as you do, I watched Bournemouth play Aston Villa at the weekend, watching Villa pumping them, and I was thinking, maybe could we do this? Maybe our style of play would suit it. One thing I do have hope for is we can pick up a surprise win or 2 in here. Maybe we could draw against Bournemouth, beat Liverpool, lose next couple, beat Villa, and get beaten. If you could pick up 7 points along there, you're doing well. So it's a tough run for West Ham, but I do have a little bit of hope back now after these 2 wins. We were great against Newcastle, not so great against Burnley, but we got the win, and that was the most important thing. Speaking of Burnley, a difficult one to judge, isn't it? And I do think most fans at the minute, and this is where I think there's bias when you support a team, and often it's negative bias. When you listen to other people discuss your club, you get defensive, you want to defend your club, and you don't like hearing someone criticise your club if they're not involved in your team. So if a Wolves fan's listening to me right now, and they might be thinking, oh, who are you? I'm going to do you in. I'd get it, right? They're going to defend Wolves. But when you look at them speaking about their own club, not because of what a gobby Scotsman on a webcam saying, I think you have a tendency to be biased. I think you have a tendency to maybe look at all the negative things about your team and overlook the positives. And I think you can also heighten the positives of the other teams around you. So let me just use West Ham as an example. I think this is... You can apply it to all the other teams. Burnley fans will do this, and Wolves fans will do this, and Nottingham Forest fans will do this. Which is, you'll look at your team and you think, well, we need this, we need that, we don't have that. Look at our fixtures. Oh, no, we're not getting out of it. There's not... And ultimately, the statement's the same no matter who you support, which is, I don't see 3 worse teams than us. That's the statement. I don't see 3 worse teams than us right now, so we're going to go down. It's bias. But likewise, you'll look at other teams. So, again, speaking from a West Ham perspective, we'll look at Nottingham Forest and go, well, do you know what? They've got good players. They've got Sean Dyche. They'll be fine. And you look at Burnley and you go, well, they're organised. They've got some half-decent players in there. They're winning the important fixtures around them. They'll be all right. Leeds, they've got Ellen Road. You start to really focus in on your negatives, but everyone else is positive. And you ignore theirs. And I think there's 2 reasons. One is knowledge, lack of knowledge sometimes. Because I don't know as much about Wolves as a Wolves fan and Forest about... Of course I don't. I know more about them. I know more than them about West Ham, and that's it. But there's also emotion. I'm emotionally invested in West Ham. I am not emotionally invested in Burnley or Leeds or Fulham, for example. If they go down, if they stay up, I might have a preference, but I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to be buzzing if a certain team stay up. I might, during a game of football, root for one of the 2 teams, and if they win, I go, hey, happy days. An hour later, I'm not walking around going, get in, that team just won. It doesn't happen. The minute the game finishes, my desire, my preference also finishes as well. I don't know why I came on to this, but it's something I believe in. So Burnley, I think it can be easy for us to look at Burnley and think, they'll be okay, but then will they? Looking at the last 5, losing to Villa and Arsenal, so what? But they beat Wolves and Leeds United, 2 huge wins for Scott Parker's side. But this one against West Ham, this defeat they've just suffered against West Ham was big. Because when I spoke to Joe, the Burnley fan, his reason for staying up was we're picking up points against the teams around us. And he was correct. Now, at the time, obviously, Burnley played Sunderland. They were expected to be around each other, right? This was the second game of the season. So they won that one, important win. Drew against Nottingham Forest, who were not doing great. Beat Leeds United. And when you're looking at it, losing away to Man U, at home to Liverpool, both last-minute penalties, losing to Man City, losing to Aston Villa, the games they're getting beat, it's not, away to Spurs at that point wasn't deemed bad. Lost against Arsenal, but they beat Wolves. So the fixtures are what you would expect, right? But this is the one. Losing away to West Ham's the first one that they might have expected something and got beat. Looking ahead to their fixtures, though, they host Chelsea before they go away to Brentford. Then they host Crystal Palace during the week, going away to Newcastle, hosting Fulham, away to Bournemouth, hosting... I like the fact that they've got home away, home away. That's a nice little... That is pleasing, isn't it? Does any other team have that? Just look at it. It's pure from October to the end of December. Away, home, away, home, away. Ooh, I like that. That looks nice on the fixture list, doesn't it? Anyway, tough fixtures in there. But at what point do we stop saying that? We can look at any team and go, ooh, tough fixtures. Here's the reality. Chelsea are doing all right, but you feel like they're inconsistent, even though they're third in the league. Brentford are doing good. No doubt about it. But if you're a team down the bottom, you've got to be trying to get something from that game at least. You can't just afford to write off all these games. You've got to pick games out. We've got to get points here. Hosting Palace, you've got to hope for a point. Away to Newcastle, again, a point. Hosting Fulham, well, if that game was after the international break, it's not, but if it was, you'd be saying we need to win that because look where Fulham are in the league. Tough games for Burnley. I think they'll do really well to stay up. I've always thought this. I've always thought Burnley would go down, even though they've been outside the relegation zone. I still just think there's just a lack of quality in their team. And I think a lot of the games I've watched where they've lost, it is just down to a lack of quality, really. It's not like they've played terrible or anything like that. They've just not been good enough on the day. Their players just aren't good enough. Now, switching over from Burnley to Leeds United, who obviously sit just outside the relegation zone at present, 1 point above West Ham, same goal difference. Last 5 fixtures, the 1 win coming against West Ham, getting beat by Spurs, Burnley, Brighton and Nottingham Forest, and in some of those games quite comfortably too. And I think that's the thing that would worry me if I was a Leeds fan, that some of those games that they've lost, like Forest, as I understand it, they had a flurry of attacks, but when they were losing, but at 2-1, but didn't really test Sells too much. Brighton, again, I only seen the highlights. It looked like they got battered. They beat us. They deserved to win, but we were crap. I don't think Leeds were fantastic that game. They were just not as crap as we were. Against Burnley, didn't take their chances. A couple of big ones. Addison missed them. Burnley took theirs. This is the one I feel like they were unlucky. Tottenham, they were unlucky in. A couple of deflection goals, and I remember that defeat away to Fulham, that last minute own goal, unlucky. So I think they've been unlucky during this part of the season. I think there's been an element of good performances, a bit unlucky, maybe deserved a few more points than they had. But I don't know, I just feel like the performances have dipped a little bit recently, and they're looking like they're going to struggle. And you look at their fixtures, I mean, these are tough. They host Aston Villa before going away to Man City, hosting Chelsea, hosting Liverpool. Then you come around to the Brentford game, and again, it's hard because you almost need to predict these. But by this point, I think it's fair to say that Leeds could or will possibly be in the bottom 3. This game gets tougher then. Hosting Palace, away to Sunderland, who are flying at the minute. But again, we don't know what Sunderland will be like at that point. But it's just the run of fixtures. I think if you flip them around, if after the international break they hosted Brentford, away to Brentford, home to Palace, we'd have European football on the Thursday night as well, and then away to Sunderland, I think maybe they could get 4 points there or something, and that would put them in a good place going into this run. But this is a difficult one for Leeds United. Not ideal. I don't think they're playing too great, and there's a lot of discussions around Fark at the minute, which I think are justifiable. Fulham. Didn't think I'd be discussing them in a relegation battle video, but the reality is, let's take a look at that league table. They've got 11 points. They're 1 point ahead of West Ham. That's it. They've won the same amount of games as Leeds, Burnley, and West Ham 3. They've just drawn one game, whereas 2 of the other 3 have lost them. They're conceding less goals, though, and they do look. Their goals scored is, it's less than West Ham, less than Burnley, and a couple more than Leeds, but they're scoring less goals than the teams below them. It's just that their defence is better. So their goal difference is fine. So they've almost got like an invisible point in comparison to those around them. But you look at the form, just one win, which came against Wolves, right? Everyone beats Wolves, bar 2 teams, and they've lost 9 games, Wolves have. But the thing with Fulham, now there's a lot of talk at the minute because of Marco Silva, and I might do a video about it next week, but if we go back, so we're going back to last season here, we're into February, and this is where the results were a little bit inconsistent, but when you go to March time, now context is important here, because back here in the league, 8th place could be European football. Now, it wasn't because Crystal Palace went on to win the FA Cup. But had Crystal Palace not won the FA Cup, 8th place would have been European football. And there was a bit of a battle going on in the Premier League between Brighton, Fulham, Bournemouth, and surprisingly Brentford. Because remember, Brentford went on a great run of form towards the end of the season. Where is Brentford? Here we go. Let's get over to Brentford and have a quick look at them. Because if you remember, and I do because I was doing videos about it, if we have a little look here, so that up until April it wasn't great, but they just started winning games. April, May, they just started picking up points and putting them on the board and making that last minute sort of surge to 8th in the league. However, we just skip back to Fulham because I've got distracted again. My point was, you need context. Fulham had something to play for at that stage in the season, and they were poor. Losing to Palace in the FA Cup. Then they lost to Arsenal, fine. Beat Liverpool, which was a great result. Losing to Bournemouth, which wasn't good. And that result against Brighton. Those are 2 of the teams that they were sort of competing with. Getting beat by Chelsea. Beat Southampton, who were crap. And then lost to Villa, lost to Everton. Beat Brentford late on in the season and before getting beat to Man City. So the results maybe weren't that bad, but they 3 wins out of the last 10 games or something like that. Then they started this season with a draw away to Brighton, doesn't feel too bad. Drawing at home to Man U, fine. Losing to Chelsea, fine. Beat Leeds, that's good. Last minute own goal though, remember, context, important. Beat Brentford, that was the big win for them, I think. But then they've lost to Villa, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Newcastle. Beat Wolves, lost to Everton. It's not great at the minute at Fulham. There's a lot of talk around the board being unhappy, Marco Silva being unhappy. It doesn't feel like a happy camp at the minute, and they just don't get as much press because they're Fulham in comparison to, say, Nottingham Forest, who are, in my opinion, a bigger club than them. They attract more attention. After international break, they host Sunderland. Then they play Tottenham, Man City, Palace. I feel like everyone down the bottom, plays Man City and Palace. I feel like those 2 fixtures in particular are cropping up quite a lot. And then they've got Burnley, which could be an important one for both teams by this point. Newcastle, Forest. So there's some really important games in there for Fulham. And whilst I find it difficult to believe Fulham would get relegated, I do struggle to, even if I tried to convince myself, I can't do it. I think they'll be okay. But I think it'd be naive to just dismiss them straight away, because there's sort of enough reasons to suggest that they should be looking over their shoulder a little bit. And they should be. I think they'll be fine. I think Marco Silva's a good manager. They've got a decent enough squad there. But need to get their act together pretty quick. 3 points in the last 5 games. There's not many teams. I mean, you look at the bottom. Nottingham Forest have got a win and a draw, 4 points. West Ham have got 2 wins. Burnley have got 2 wins. So there's only really Wolves and Leeds with worse form than Fulham and Liverpool. Liverpool also mimic the form of what Fulham are in at the minute. 3 points from 5 games, that's terrible, regardless of what stage of the season you're in and who you are. And I'm not going to discuss this team. Sunderland up there in 4th. They're not in a relegation battle. They ain't getting relegated. Even if they lost the next 5 games, they'll drop down to mid-table. And I still think come the end of the season, they'll be here or hereabouts, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think they will be they're not going to stay up there, I don't think. But I think they'll go on and have a really good season. And I think that's dreamland. It's dreamland. Dreams are subjective, aren't they? You don't want to... If you're a promoted team, your dream is that you're not in a relegation battle. And that's exactly what Sunderland are right now. They're not in a relegation battle. That's a really good start to the season, but they've got half the points they need, more than half the points they need, and we're just coming up to a third of the way through the season. Fantastic results so far for Sunderland. Obviously, got tough fixtures coming up and whatnot, but I think they'll be fine. In terms of relegation, I feel like there's more people starting to predict Burnley, Wolves, and Leeds to go down, and that was my 3 I had at the start of the season. And that's probably my 3 today. If I had to put money on it, I won't. But if I had to, that would be my trio. However, this is the Premier League, and sometimes the predictable does happen. Last season, the 3 promoted teams went down with a whimper. Predictable. But sometimes the unpredictable can happen. And I think that's what you want as a football fan. Obviously, you don't want your team to be on the receiving end of it. You want to be the surprise package. Sunderland are that surprise package right now. Unpredictable. It's fun. Fulham getting dragged into it would be unpredictable, I think, for many. That would add a little bit of entertainment. As a West Ham fan, clearly I'm biased. I hope we get out of it. So I don't really care who goes down as long as we are at worst 17. And if you offer me 17th right now, I'd take it. Stop the season. And it feels pathetic to want that and for that to be enough. I don't think we should be here, but that's a conversation for a different day. But we won't be the only club thinking like that. Wolves fans will be thinking, how on earth are we this bad? Why are we this bad? And they're well within the right to be asking those questions. The relegation battle, I think, is going to be a good one this season. And I know people say it's 11 games in, you can't tell anything. Well, I disagree, because bar Sunderland, I think what we're looking at here with Wolves, West Ham, maybe not Nottingham Forest. Again, it depends on your pre-season predictions. I had them in middle of the bottom half. I didn't think there'd be this much of a drop-off. I thought there'd be quite a substantial drop-off for Nottingham Forest. But the teams that are involved in it, West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley, it's expected. So I think you can absolutely discuss the relegation battle at this stage of the season, because, well, you can discuss what you want. But I think come the end of the season, I think the teams that are down the bottom at the minute, I think will still be down the bottom. The order might change. The gap in points, Wolves might close that gap. They might get out of it. But I still think they'll be in the bottom 5. I think West Ham, Leeds, Burnley, I think we'll all be in the bottom 5 as well. It feels like, and this is my bias coming in, it feels like 4 into 3 for me. Wolves, West Ham, Burnley and Leeds. 4 teams, I think 3 go. I'm taking Nottingham Forest out of that because I've convinced myself they'll be okay because of the squad they've got, because of the players they've got, because of Dyche. But then I don't really apply that to West Ham with Nuno, but also because I think our squad's weak. I think we've got a good starting 11 and that's it. The January transfer window is going to be significant this season, because every one of those teams that we've just talked about are going to want to strengthen. Sometimes you get to January and a team or two has already been cut adrift, so they're planning for the Championship. They're not getting involved. They might get in a loan signing or something to try and make a little bit of it, but they're not really going to start spending money. They're doing the opposite. They're trying to save. They're preparing for relegation. At this stage, Wolves might get cut adrift, but I don't know. I think they'll put points on the board. It's just that they've got a lot of making up to do. They're 9 points behind getting out of the relegation zone. That's a lot. Three more wins than Burnley and Leeds is between now and January is a big ask. I don't think they're going to do it. But come January, you might find Wolves, West Ham, Burnley, Leeds, Nottingham Forest, Fulham are thinking, we've got to spend, we've got to get players in. We could have a really good, busy January transfer window because of the relegation battle this season. And you look at the opposite end of the Premier League and you could apply that theory there too. Don't know. But I want to know what you guys think. Get involved in the comments. But that's my nonsense on the relegation battle. It's looking like a good one. I think Wolves are gone. I think Burnley will go. West Ham need to keep improving. Leeds have got a bloody difficult run coming up after the international break. I like it. it's important. It's important for the Premier League. They've got, or so far, it looks like they're going to get exactly what they need. Competition, unpredictable, and therefore entertaining. Thank you very much for joining me. Please subscribe if you're new. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. I'll catch you in a bit.